Hello once again. What did I watch this time? Well, it's displayed in the video and the title, so you probably know that tonight I watched The Ritual on Netflix. I think it's a Netflix exclusive. Yeah. First thing I'm gonna say before I go into anything is how cool I think the creature design for this movie is. It's is really neat, very unique. But anyway, we'll get into that later. So, as usual, spoiler alert, blah blah blah, you haven't seen it, don't watch the video, watch the movie, blah blah blah, you get it. And again, yes, if you enjoy quality YouTube videos, don't watch this either, just for that reason alone. Okay, so yeah, movie starts off, group of 5 friends in a pub in the UK somewhere, I don't know where, but they're planning on a big trip because one of their friends, although I don't remember who, just got like a promotion or something, or they got like a career that they're about to start, and I guess they won't be able to do like annual trips anymore or whatnot. So they're thinking of a big one. They're thinking of, we could go to Vegas, Amsterdam, could go to France, whatever, all these places. And then one of them's like, why don't we go hiking? And I'm like, what? Come on. And eventually they kind of talk about it, and I mean, it's looking like it's going to go that way. And Rob, the gentleman who brought up the hiking idea, and his other friend Luke, they go into a liquor store to get some booze for the night, and they're joking around, talking about whether they're potentially going to go, you know, for the hike and whatnot. And they see the store clerk on the ground, like, beaten. And like, what the hell's going on? And that's when some guys come out of the back with another guy, and they're robbing the place. So they went shopping in the middle of a robbery. Not the best time to do that. Anyway, Luke hides, but Rob doesn't really have time or anywhere to go, so he's kind of out in the open, and the robbers are like, give me your wallet, you know, give me everything you got. And then they ask for his wedding ring, and he's like, no, I can't do that. Like, you got everything else, just let me have the ring or whatever. And Luke is hiding this whole time, and he's kind of like, oh, frick, what's gonna happen? Anyway, they end up smashing Rob in the face and taking his ring anyway, and basically that's the end of that. They flash forward to, I guess they decided to go honor Rob by going on this hike. I think it's in Sweden, but it's near, I think, is it the Norwegian border or something like that, or Finland? It's one of those two borders. I don't know. Well, I mean, that's the only ones it has, but it's one of those two borders. I think it's Norway, and they're hiking through like the highlands or whatever, and it's beautiful. That would be an amazing hike if I had the energy to do that. But yeah, of course, there's always one guy who's going to be bitching and shit. So this character Dom, he's not into it, but he's doing it because his friend, it's like a tribute to him. But you can tell he doesn't want to be here. He's constantly complaining, like, saying, oh, we could have been in Vegas, blah 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 blah. Which, shut up. Yeah, so he's complaining about that. And whatchamacallit, the leader of the group, I guess you could call him, his name is Hutch, and he's kind of sort of I guess he put this thing together for the most part to make sure it's honored properly. So they're hiking across the highlands, and they need to take a break, so they go find a nice hill, and they build like a little tribute shrine to Rob, and they put his picture and I think some personal items and some candles, and they each take a swig of a flask and dump it out and leave the flask there. I don't know if it was his flask or not, but all in all, good tribute. And then they're going to go finish the rest of the hike in his honor, I guess. So they go camping, and they camp overnight, and whatchamacallit, the next day they're hiking out, and it's either the next day or the day after, and Dom, the bitchy one, go figure, ends up slipping, and his foot goes in like a little crevice or whatever in the rock, and he twists his leg, his knee or ankle or something, and so he's kind of down and out, and they have like a long way to go. So Hutch is like, okay, well, I mean, we're already so far from everything, it's almost faster if we just finish the hike. But obviously you can't do that. So I've got a map, I've got a compass. Let's go through the woods. We'll just go, I think it was southwest was the direction that there's, I don't know, it doesn't really matter. A direction, I think it's southwest. We're going to head through the woods, and it'll basically cut the entire hike time in half, and they'll get to whatever village is at the end of the hike. And so everyone kind of agrees. I mean, they don't really have a choice. Fucking Dom is like in rough shape. He's able to walk, but he's in like excruciating pain constantly. So they go through the woods, and it starts raining, and they wander through, and no, it doesn't rain yet. Sorry, I'm jumping all over the place. So they end up finding like an elk or something. It's strung up in a tree and like disemboweled. And they're like, what the hell did that? And they're like, a bear? No, it can't be a bear. Or maybe it's like hunters or like some weird thing. That they're all a little bit irked about it. Understandably so. That's not natural in the slightest. And then they see a tree with like a rune, like a Nordic rune etched into it or whatnot. And so they're like, oh boy, okay. Some shit's happening here. And then it starts raining, and they are pushing through, and they find this really beat up old cabin, and it's like, okay, well, I mean, we have to have shelter. There's like nowhere to set up a tent because it's too dense. So let's just go into the shelter. It looks abandoned. We'll break into it. No big deal. We'll spend the night. So they break into it, and as soon as they enter it, there's like, hanging from the ceiling, there's like carved wooden runes of like similar in nature to what was on the tree. So that weirds them out right away. And then there's like a wood burning stove. So they're gonna find like old furniture to smash and build a fire to keep warm, which, I mean, yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do, right? It's an abandoned place, who cares? They already broke in, they're already felons, so it doesn't really matter. But anyway, yeah, so they do that, and then one guy goes and checks upstairs, and he opens a door, and he sees this like human-shaped straw effigy of some kind. He's like, guys, come check this shit out. And they all go up, and one of them was like, oh fuck, that's witchcraft, that's friggin' witchcraft. Like, but they got nowhere to go, and that's the argument. That's kind of what Hutch says. He's like, well, we either stay here in a creepy place, that's, I mean, realistically nothing's probably gonna happen, it's just kind of creepy, or we go in the rain and we potentially get hypothermia. It's the lesser of two evils, right? So they all agree, okay, we'll stay in. Then they start hearing weird noises outside. And they're like, what the hell? Okay, this is not ideal. And anyway, they all pass out, and I guess each one of them has some dreams, but you only really get to see Luke's dream. So in his dream, basically, there's lightning going outside from the storm, but then the lightning suddenly stops, like, and it becomes like a spotlight shining through like the broken window and the cracks of the door, and he opens the door to see what it is, because like that's messed up. And it's the inside of the liquor store where his buddy Rob was killed, and he had to, like, he relives that moment, which is rough. The whole time you find out he's been blaming himself because he was hiding, he didn't do anything like to stop them or anything, but at the same time, what would he do against people with weapons? Like, they just, I don't know. But yeah, he's got the guilt there, and he finally snaps out of it, and Hutch is freaking out, and he wakes Hutch up, and he's like, you're having a dream, you're having a bad dream, like, it happened to me too. Shakes him, wakes him up, and he looks down, he's like, oh, I pissed myself, this is not ideal. And then they see Dom freaking out in the corner, and he's like still asleep, but he's screaming, and they wake up, and he's like screaming Gail, which you find out later is his wife, and they wake him up, and they're like, you're having a bad dream, man, like, just wake up, it's good. And then they're like, wait a minute, where's Phil? Phil's the other guy, by the way. So they are looking, and they hear something upstairs, and they go upstairs, and they see Phil completely naked, like praying to this straw man effigy thing, and he's like asleep while he's doing it, which is like double creepy. They wake him up, and he's just like, what? How did I, like, he's totally confused. They're all like messed up over it. So they're like, okay, let's leave. So they pack up as quickly as they can, all bitching the whole time, Dom mostly. And as soon as they exit the building, they notice that all of the surrounding trees now have freshly carved runes in them. And they're like, okay, we need to get the hell out of here, like, yesterday. So they do. And Dom finds a path that is not on the map, but he's frustrated and scared at this point. And he's like, listen, it's a path. It leads to society because it had to come from society, and it ends at this cabin which has no other paths around it. So logically thinking, we should go there. There's a little bit of a protest saying like it's not even in the right direction of where we know there's a town. And they're just like, whatever, it's a path, let's just follow it. It'll probably be easier than like bushwhacking. So they do that, they follow the path, and it gets dark pretty damn quickly. What happens next? Something else happens. They hear noises and like something's clearly like following them and shit. And I think they camp outside for the night, and they wake up to, I think it's Phil freaking out, and he gets out of the. He has another flashback to the Liquor Mart's robbery event, and he wakes up to Phil screaming, and he leaves, and like one of the tents is like demolished and Hutch is gone, like just gone. And they're freaking out. They're like, we gotta find him, and they just rush off into the woods. And finally common sense cuts in, and I think it was Dom who was like, guys, we need to find our bearings because then we'll just get lost. We have to go see where we came from so we know where we're going, and then we can actually get back, you know, when we find him, whatever. So they agree, and they go back to the camp, and they retrace their steps and all that. And eventually they do end up finding Hutch. But he's in a very similar position to that elk that they found earlier. So he's strung up in a tree, gutted, disemboweled. Not a good time. He didn't have the greatest time at that hike, but that's what happens. Ah, Jesus. So anyway, they give him a little impromptu burial because, like, you can't just leave him up there. You can't do that. So the most they can do at the time, they can't exactly take a body with them and hike through somewhere that they don't even know where they're going, right? So finally, is it Luke? I think Luke takes control basically and says, like, we need to stick to the plan that Hutch had. We're going to go in the direction that he said because we know there's signs there. No more of this trail. It's not leading us anywhere. It's literally turning us back around and going in a completely opposite direction. It's not going to help. So they kind of agree. He ends up seeing a clearing and he runs up. He's all excited. This may have happened before or after, I can't remember, but he's all excited. He sees like a clearing with light shining and he's, oh hell yeah, and he runs up to go to the top of the hill or whatever, and it turns out it's just like more expansive forest, just slightly sparsely populated so that light could shine through. And he's like crushed. He's like, fuck. Pretty sure that happened there. Or maybe that happened with Hutch when he was still around. I can't really remember. But anyway, it's not really important. Anyway, as he comes back, and then they find another clearing and he goes up and he can actually see like over some hills, like the end of the forest, meaning, yeah, they're going in the right direction. He's like, fuck, Hutch was right. And he goes back to tell the other guys who are just resting because Dom's knee or whatever, he has to take like periodic breaks. I mean, you can't hike for like thousands of kilometers on a twisted knee or whatever. But anyway, he comes back and they're both looking around frantically, and it becomes apparent that it's gotten dark really quickly. So they've got their flashlights going and they're looking for something, and they're like, we saw something. And he's like, don't play that. And he's like, no, and just as he's about to say that, poor Phil gets yoinked from behind by this unknown thing that's shrouded in darkness, and you hear him screaming and it's dragging him in the forest, and then it drops his light and he's dead. Did they find the body? No, I don't think they find Phil's body. I think he's just dead. So, yeah, poor Luke, he's just like, shit. And he loses track of Dom, and he's like, oh fuck, did I get Dom too? Son of a bitch. And he sees him hiding, and he's like, why am I holding a pen? And And so he ducks behind and they're hiding, and Dom's like really freaking out. Like, he's not the bravest man in the world. Let's just be real for a second here. And basically Luke kind of has to take charge. He's like, I'm not going to leave you. Like, don't stress about that. I'm not leaving you behind. We're going to get out of here. And Dom's like, is it going to come back? He's like, yeah, let's be real. It probably is going to come back. So we wait for a little bit. It's quiet. We go. So they go, and this thing does see them, and you hear it like coming towards them in the bush, and they're like frantically trying to like outpace it, but it's getting nearer and nearer. You still can't really see what it is, so it's got like that, you know, what could it be horror type element to it, which I love in movies. I'm not a fan of jump scares. Like, they're okay, they're fun for a moment, but they're kind of like a cheap thrill. Like, you don't leave a movie full of jump scares feeling genuinely kind of creeped out. You're just like, oh, that was fun. I got startled a couple times. But I like these movies that the build-up leads to something a lot creepier, so you don't actually see this thing all the time. You know, there's more mystery to it. It's creepier to me. It's like a psychological thing. Anyway, so this movie does that. There aren't really jump scares. I think there's like one or two, but nothing like, doesn't rely on that entirely, which is nice. So anyway, yeah, this thing is running. They're trying to, you know, keep pace away faster than it, and they stumble. No, I went too far. Shit. Okay, so reverse a little bit. Before Phil got snatched and they find the clearing and whatnot, they find human footprints when they're drinking from like a puddle, and they're like, okay, we're not going that way. And this becomes important. So anyway, fast forward to where I left off again, where the thing's chasing them, and they stumble and they trip and they fall on this other path, which actually has like torch lights lining it, leading towards kind of like a settlement area where there's like a small population of people, I guess. And they go towards it, and they go into this building, and they're hiding, and they hear the thing stomping around, and then boom, knocked unconscious. So Dom and Luke wake up. They're like tied up, and some old woman and some guy watching the old woman come in, and they don't speak English clearly because they're in Sweden. And if you're like a really rural, like tribal Swedish, Nordic, like Viking people or whatever these are supposed to be, you're not going to speak English. Well, probably not anyway. They're isolated from everything. Yeah, and so they're basically... There is one younger woman, though, who... I think she offers them water. No, the old lady offers them water, and then, like, looks at Luke, and Luke has, like, a scar on his chest here from, like, I guess, in his dream or something, or the thing must have grabbed him or something. But anyway, he has a mark on him. And she pulls down her shirt, and she has the same mark as him. And so he's like, okay, well, I don't know what that means. And then the younger woman comes in and basically says, this thing it's an ancient god. We're lucky to worship it, and you also will bow to it, or something along those lines. Then they grab Dom, and they drag him upstairs, and I don't know what they do. They guess they beat the shit out of him or something, but they say they're like preparing him for the sacrifice. And they bring him back down, and he's in rougher shape than he was before. And he basically looks at Luke, and he's like, "Okay, I'm dead. Like, I've accepted it. I'm going to die. You, on the other hand, need to get the hell out of here. They're going to sacrifice me before they do anything to you. You have time. Get the hell out of here. Burn this place to the ground. You know, take them out with you." And that's that. So then they do grab Dom, and they end up bringing him out and tying him to this stake that's facing the woods. And he's getting frustrated. I guess it's been like a long time, and he's just standing there waiting to get killed, and he's over it at this point, as we all would be. And he's like, come on, like, hurry up already. And then the forest starts rustling. And then he gets scared again, because why did I have to call it out? I could have, like, lived longer, but whatever. And the forest rustles, and then out of the forest comes his wife. So I don't know, I might have missed something in the beginning of the story, like, is his wife dead, or is she alive? I don't know. But he's, like, moved by seeing her, and she comes up to him and, like, puts her hands on his face and is, like, telling him to, you know, just, I guess, trying to calm him down. And then it pans out, and you see this friggin' weird-ass creature for the first time, and the design of this thing is so cool. It has like a body that's similar to an elk, but you know how a giraffe has kind of like a back that goes up, like the front legs are longer than the back, so it has that, and then it has like a thick neck, and then its head is like a human torso with antlers, and at the bottom of its, where its jaws would be, is just like a black hole with two beady little yellow eyes and human arms coming out of its chin. It's like the weirdest looking thing. If you haven't seen it, it's just look up pictures of like the ritual creature or whatever. It's really cool. Anyway, this thing grabs him and it's holding him by the head, and now he can see it and not his wife, and he's like, oh, as you would. And it impales him in a tree. So all these things that were being impaled were due to this thing. I mean, Phil's probably on a tree somewhere, just dead from this thing, because that's what it does. I don't know why. Anyway, all this happens, and Luke was watching through like a hole in the, you know, they plug the logs with sod in older buildings or wherever. He pushed them out so he could see outside, and this is what he witnessed. Good times. And the younger woman comes back down and says basically something along the lines of like, you will bow to it, or you will be the second sacrifice. And that's just the way it is, sorry. And then she explains it's a Jotun, which in Norse mythology were like ice giants, I think, is essentially what they are. But it's more than just that. They're gods, essentially, or like demigods or something. My Norse mythology knowledge is limited, apologies, but they're very powerful beings, close to gods, if not gods. And they're the direct descendants of Loki. So, yeah, that's pretty neat. And creepy as hell, too. Anyway, so when she leaves or whatever, he slowly, like, gets out of his stuff by, like, I guess he bleeds and he uses his own blood as lubricant or something. I'm not really sure how that worked, but he got out of his little shackle things that were made out of, like, twine and whatnot. And he's sneaking around, and he hears this praying from a room, and he opens this room, and there's nothing in there, but there's like a bunch of mummified bodies, like dead people. And so he goes in there, and he's got a torch, and he's like, what the hell, are they just keeping these dead bodies? And then the dead bodies start moving, so they were alive, I guess. The young girl had said that this thing gives them eternal life, but I mean, what kind of a life is that if that's what you're going to be like in a couple hundred years? Anyway, he lights them all on fire, as you do. Bunch of mummies, they can barely even move, they're so like old and decrepit, so whatever. I mean, it's probably for the best in all honesty, because that's like suffering to me, if you ask me. But anyway, he does that, and the building's on fire, and he goes to escape, and a guy stops him, and he finds like a rifle, and he puts a couple of rounds into it, and as he rounds the corner, the guy stops him, and he's like, goes to shoot, and it goes click, and he's like, shit. And the guy slowly approaching, like, dude, you gotta, like, just accept the sacrifice. And he puts another bullet in, and that one works. Boom, guy's dead. And then he rounds the corner, and he sees another guy looking a completely opposite direction, like, freaked out. And he puts his axe down, and he, like, kneels down, and Luke steps out with the gun aiming at him, and then he realizes where he's looking, and looks out the door, and this creature is looking through the door, and it lowers itself, and its arms go like that to get inside. Ugh, it's creepy. So he bolts the other way and like smashes through one of the walls in the back, which is burning, so it's like pretty easy to smash through. Quick escape. And that's when you see the thing, like, it is pissed off, I guess, that these people let it kill its mummy worshippers or something. I don't know what the story is, but that's what I'm assuming. So it grabs the young lady that was actually trying to be kind of nice to him, and ends up like throwing her around. And yeah, there's a cool scene where the cabin in the background is completely on fire, and you see the shadow of this creature holding the woman's body or whatever. And anyway, it starts chasing Luke and knocks him down a couple times, and basically pushes him to the ground. And you can I think it's saying kneel, like it has enough knowledge to sort of form English words, knowing the language you speak. It's a god. I mean, obviously it would have some kind of something. Anyway, it says kneel, and it pushes him down, and he's fucking out of it for a second, and then he's like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And he stands up, and the thing pushes him down again, kneel. And no, he's not doing it. So the thing, I think it hits him, and he like scurries and runs some more. And anyway, he ends up actually hitting it in the head with the axe that he took from the dude in the building or whatever, which slows it down temporarily enough for him to get to the edge of the forest. And as soon as he crosses the end of the forest into the clearing, the Jotun can't cross that barrier, I guess, for whatever reason, and it's there, and it's like, rah, and he's like, rah, just teasing the shit out of it, I guess. I don't know. And it turns around because obviously it can't leave that area of the forest, and it goes back in and pisses off, and that's the end of that. And Luke turns and he sees a road, and he sees a car going down the road, and he's like, oh, finally, okay, I'm out of there. All my friends are dead, but I made it, and there's a road, so that'll lead somewhere. And then the movie credits go. Yeah. So, good job, Netflix. I did a piss poor job of explaining it and why it was cool, but it was good. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. What am I going to rate it? I'm going to go high 8s, I think, because this was pretty solid. I'm going to go 8.9. Yeah, 8.9. That feels right. That feels right. Thoroughly enjoyed it. You should definitely check it out. There's some very creepy visuals. Doesn't rely on jump scares, so all around pretty solid. Yeah, and that's that. I don't know who any of the actors were, to be honest. I don't know if they've been in other things or not. So that kind of helped, because, you know, sometimes if you see like Brad Pitt, it's like, oh, well, it's Brad Pitt, right? Or, you know, whoever. But it's just some guys. Maybe they're famous, I'm not sure, but I haven't seen them in anything, so that helps get into the vibe of the movie. And that's about it. This has gone on longer than it should, as pretty much every video except for like 1 or 2 have so far, so I'm going to end it at that. So, salutations. Have a good night or day. Peace.